Is your mental health being challenged with everything going on in society?
Some men in the Houston community are standing up to say they will make a difference and lessen the impact that police brutality has had on the world. Welcome to the Chamber, a place where healing begins.
We are coming to you, we're in Houston right now, and we are joined by Mr. John Williams. Mental health is huge right now in our country because of everything that we have all suffered at the hands of police brutality. So today we're going to focus on that, and our guest is here to shed some light on some things that he's actually doing in the community to be proactive. He's an activist. He is from Houston. He attended Jackie Yates High School, the same high school where George Floyd attended. So we're excited to have him here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, tell us a little bit about your plight right now. Right now we're going from a state of just being in a lot of traumatic. We've been through so many things as far as the loss of Breonna Taylor, the loss of Sandra Bland, now George Floyd. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to combat all of the things that are happening.
Well, one of the things I'm doing is just trying to remain positive and share positivity throughout, my community and through some of the things that I'm doing personally. You mentioned my organization, Brothers of the Community. We are just starting out, but we are trying to make sure that there's a brother in every community that represents that community and that takes care of that community. And part of that is just making sure that we're accountable for what we do within our community and making sure that people are safe, and the police brutality that we have to endure as Black men, that decreases, but our level of responsibility as Black men increase to our young people in the community.
As you mentioned before, you are from Houston, you're from 3rd Ward. Can you recall growing up that sense of brotherhood and community that we're missing right now?
In the 80s, the drugs and those things hit pretty hard, but me personally and even in my network of friends, we never really had to deal with some of the Black on Black crime that's so prevalent now. The brotherhood that we shared, your mother got on your case. The people in the community cared a little bit more about each other. If I did something wrong, it was nothing for my neighbor to get on my behind and say, I'm gonna tell your mama what's going on as well. But that sense has somewhat dissipated in some regard. Some of that is our fault. Some of that is just the signs of the times in the community. Some of that is just because of the social media and how that portrays in Black America. All those things come to play. But me personally growing up in the 80s, I had great friends. I still have some of those friends till today. We still go out and do things together and all those things. So,
can you talk to us about where you were at the moment when you heard about Floyd? I mean, you actually shared the same alma mater. What were you thinking? What went through your mind, and what was your response?
Well, where I was during that time, I was dealing with COVID myself. I tested positive for COVID on March 31st, and it was in day 50 during the time when George Floyd passed. I didn't personally know him, but because of the connection that we have at Jackie Yates High School, of course, our alumni base just rose to the occasion to try to do everything that we could to be in support of not only him and what went on with him, but with his family. We've done some outstanding things to help with his kids, to help with his family. On last week, we just presented a love donation check to the family. I was able to be a part of that and be involved in that. But I think just when all that went down, where I was mentally, I got to get more involved. I got to get back to doing some of the things that I was doing prior to his death. Those are some of the things that went through my mind personally. And then being in the hospital and not being able to do a whole lot, I tried my best to just stay positive, pray for folks, reach out to the family, reach out to most alumni, to find out what's going on.
Speaking of prayer, trauma has just been rampant in the community. I for one, we're degreed, we're educated, but when I see a police officer, I fret because I don't want to be stopped. I don't want to have to answer to them. So what do you say to any of us as African Americans, something that we can actually do to work mentally, work through this process mentally?
Well, I think one thing that we just have to make sure that we're accountable for making sure when a situation of that arises that we have everything together, you know. And most of the things in terms of talking with cops, you know, as long as you know your rights and you're prepared, I think you stand a chance to drive away. I think that's part of the fear. Part of the fear is that when the police pulls us over, we're going to reenact in our minds what happened with George Floyd, what happened with Breonna Taylor, what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, all those things. We're going to replay this in our brain. But I think the best solution to that is to know your rights. Know exactly what a cop can and cannot do, and know that you've taken care of having your insurance, your license up to par, all those things. So again, you know, just making sure that you're prepared.
I know that your organization wants to provide representation in every single community as far as brotherhood is concerned, but also, don't you agree that those police officers and those that are going through these neighborhoods should also be just as familiar with representing their force in the community and knowing who lives there, and possibly even working alongside with an organization like yours that's truly a representation of the inhabitants of that particular community?
Well, that's part of the reason why we're doing this organization, is to try to bridge the gap, to make sure that we have a relationship not only with the community but also with the officers that come within our community, and making sure that we train our young people and people that may run into a situation where they get pulled over by the police, their rights, what they can do and what they cannot do, and being prepared just in case, okay, you got a ticket or you did have something going on, you fight that in court. You don't fight that on the streets. And then the flip side of that is making sure that police have a relationship with at least one person in the community where we can talk and say, okay, all right, these are the things that are going on in our community. This is how you can help us. Training, making sure that you come around and talk to us, making sure that you're more visible in our community so people feel safe. These are some of the things that I believe will help, you know, bridge that gap.
44 million Americans approximately have a bout with mental illness. And so it's one of those things where we have to work as a team and we have to become educated. What pathway should people be taking to learn more about staying mentally healthy in the community? What do you suggest?
Well, 3 things. I think, you know, growing a spiritual connection with the man upstairs is definitely one way to go. I think when we start to identify those who actually need the help, you know, making sure that we have the resources available so they can get the help. You know, forms of exercise, whatever the case may be. You know, there are different types of mental illnesses, and some of those can be treated through medicines, but there are also different, you know, types of mental illnesses where it's going to take more in-depth research and making sure that they understand, you know, that these resources are available. You know, one of the things in the lower income communities that it's a lack of resources, and we have to make that more prevalent for people who are going through mental illness. I look at some of the homeless situations, and you know, and I want to reach out to them every time, but you can't help everyone. But if there are resources available where they can go and not be, you know, not get into a situation where they have to do this and do that and qualify for this, you know, just get the help that they need, you know, and we deal with the other stuff later.
So we all have a responsibility. July 17th, John Lewis, he passed, and I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to read his essay, but he says from this point on, it's our duty to pick up the baton and to run with it. And that's actually what we're doing. That's why we created this platform, because we know that we have a responsibility. We want to help people do better in life holistically. We're talking about mental health, we're talking about physically, emotionally, you talked about prayer, spiritually. So there are some things you talked to us about being a personal trainer. So tell us how people can engage and stay healthy. I think if you're physically healthy, you feel better mentally, emotionally. So talk to us about that, because I know that's your background.
Well, one of the things I think most people should do is make sure they sit down and create a plan on how they're going to reach the goals that they're trying to reach physically. You know, I was a health and wellness director for 13 years, and one of the things we always sat down with people to do is to create a plan. When you're going to start, where you're going to start. Are you going to just start with cardio? Are you going to start with strength training? Or are you going to combine the both? But making sure you sit down and create that plan. And then once you create the plan, now you got to move forward into making those things come to action. John Lewis, you made a perfect example. He not only created a strategy or plan, but he made sure that he carried it out. And it's the same thing with physical activity. You know, making sure that you create the plan first and then carry it out second. And don't give up until you do. You know, and even if you get a stumbling block along the way, you know, you can get back up. You get back up and you try again.
So what do you do?
Well, I agree with everything you just said, but I always remind my patients, because I'm also, aside from being a counselor, a medical doctor, have your team. You need your doctor on your team, just like you need your trainer on your team. And check in with all the players on your team, your nutritionist for diet support, your fitness trainer for motivation and workout and planning, but also all of your healthcare providers to make sure that you are in a good health space to begin a rigorous fitness routine, because we want to be safe and cautious. But I think everything works together when you have an encompassing team to help you in all these different areas. And also a part of that team, you want to acknowledge your spiritual leaders, your confidants, your counseling, your key network of players that are going to support you when you hit that roadblock. And always, you also need a motivator, an inspiration. Those that are here, that have gone before us, and those that may not be here. And I think John Lewis, his legacy is that of one of inspiration and motivation, that hopefully this next generation is going to carry that dream home, because that's a charge that he left us with. And I hope that we as a community will take that seriously.
Amen to that.
Absolutely.
Amen to
and
that.
You know, and when I was reading the essay, he said Emmett Till was his George Floyd.
Wow.
And it spoke volumes to me. I mean, I really literally was in tears, because we have a responsibility. We have to do something. And that is my charge to everyone who will follow us, people who are proud that we've accomplished certain things. That's my charge to people. We may not be able to reach 10 people, but if we reach 5 people, that speaks volumes. And that's why when I talked to you and you told me about the organization, I was super proud of it. Because for one, I work in the school system. I'm an administrator, and you do not see a lot of African American role models, men, and we need that, So there are some things that we can do to educate people, and as we move forward. What will be one of your first major assignments as brothers?
Voting on November
Awesome.
3rd.
Okay.
We are making sure that every brother in the community talks to someone and make sure that they explain, not only just for the presidential side, the local and state, where we have to make sure we have the right people in place. Driving people to vote, getting people registered, all of that, making sure that they're registered. We've already started that plight already. So I'm super excited about that. That's going to be our first focus, is making sure of that.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about it. We've talked about mental health. We've talked about engaging in healthy activities. We've talked about background, having a coach, being a motivator. So there are so many things that we can do as a society. We've got to work together. I know I keep prefacing, the essay that Lewis talked about, but it's like it was a coming together of society, protests across the country. And he said, you guys have inspired me. Think about it. He is the person who has inspired millions, but now he's saying, I can't continue on with you because my time has come. And it really does give me chills, because I'm like, okay, I mean, I felt so motivated to like do more, you know, and continue to run with that baton. So we really appreciate you last minute
really
coming
appreciate
on
you
to talk to
coming,
us.
inviting me.
I fought him out. I was stalking. I was stalking.
Yeah.
You cannot
Because-
say that.
Oh, right. I need it.
She was persistent.
Yeah, she was
I was very
persistent.
We need persistence.
Yeah, I was on
Gotcha.
Decades page, and that's
Yeah.
how I found him. So,
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
so we're
I'm very active with our alumni, so I mean, I wasn't hard to find, that's for sure. But thank you for the invite, thank you for the opportunity, and you know, let's just continue to keep it going. One of the things I shared with the Floyd family when we presented the check, you have to keep talking about it. You have to stay proactive. You have to
Absolutely.
make sure that this does not die. And if you do that, then you know, what happened to Floyd will not go in vain.
It will not.
It will not. We're here to say that it will not. All right. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to talk about it, and we will continue to talk about Floyd, Taylor, and everybody else who's been impacted. Police brutality, which is so major right now, we won't let it die, and we'll continue to let the legacies of those people live on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again.